Coach White, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to kind of hop on here. For the listeners at home, will you tell us a little bit about your background, your motivation, and kind of where you are currently?
Yeah. Right now, I'm at LSU, strength and conditioning coach there, working with women's basketball, women's tennis currently. I do hop around from team to team, just more for personal reasons, but those are my two main teams. But I'm from California,
Okay.
and I started off kind of working with every team.
Yeah.
So I've experience with kind of extreme sports, action sports, surfing, mountain biking, those type of BMX, I suppose, all the way to your more traditional power sports, football and basketball, baseball type thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's a very brief.
No, I love it. Okay. Well, you kind of touched on some of that past history working with some of those action sports and how you were able to get involved with some of those.
Yeah. So, during my undergrad, when I was at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo over in California, I'd always been interested in strength conditioning. I was one of those guys that I didn't know any better, but I saw those Flex magazines and just was kind of drawn to like the power that they at least looked like.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
For some reason, inherently, I had just known that, well, like, although it may be kind of cool to look like that, it's my job is to be a football player, and so I shouldn't necessarily be doing these workouts because then it will get me to look like that. And it didn't really translate to me at the time. And my mentor, Chris Holder, was there, and we became great friends. He's actually my daughter's godfather.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now. So we've been kind of together, I suppose, for a very long time. And after that, I got the chance to play football after college in Canada briefly, the arena leagues briefly, and getting me to train for that was Peak Performance Project.
Okay.
So P3 down in Santa Barbara, which is about an hour and a half from Cal Poly. So after my senior season, I drove there at least 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Every week until the draft and many years after, just to train. And fortunately, in between one of the seasons, I was able to intern there. And so that really helped kind of jumpstart my programming education. And that's where all of those extreme sports started to come in, because they would work with some high-level surfers, BMX, AVP, MLB, all of those types of people. So I got a chance to really see the highest of the high, most elite athletes in those different genres of sport.
That's super interesting. Okay. And what are some of the nuances with working with some of those sports that people might not expect?
Well, with those the surfing, they train barefoot. It wasn't something I actually concentrated on.
Yeah.
I was more, there's a lot of baseball athletes at the time, so it was more on that.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting for me to watch them train barefoot, super high drops, and I'm not a surfer.
Yeah.
So just asking those questions about what was required of them, and just understanding that coming down and hopping on the board on a wave is a pretty big jump.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the plyometrics and all of that stuff. But what really, I think, even more so interested me was the beach volleyball players. Working with those elite, and them finishing a workout that would take me 2 hours, 2:15 maybe, depending on the day.
Yeah.
But they'd crush it in an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
And then they go out and run and all those types of things.
Yeah.
How are they doing this?
Yeah.
And then after my real first off season with them, I understood that recovery was super key. We actually never trained like running for conditioning. Not one time did I ever condition with running. It was just higher level sprinting for mechanics and things like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So it was just those initial exposures to the surfers and then those beach volleyball players was enlightening, to say the least.
Yeah, I bet. Okay. Do you have any kind of recommendations for younger coaches that are trying to do something that is similar to you now?
I think the biggest thing that I like to tell my interns or grad assistants as well, or people just trying to break in the business is, at least collegiately,
yeah,
is you got to get your eyes on people and really spend the time in there. I think that was one of the biggest things that helped me to get where I am, is have my hands on a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Because even though the requirements of the sport or activity are maybe completely different,
yeah,
some of the ways to get there are exactly the same. You know, speed and strength, they're all inclusive.
yeah,
They don't discriminate against the athlete. You have to use those attributes in different ways, but you develop them in similar manners.
Yeah.
With physiology and all those types of things. So I think once again, just making sure that you're around all of those different types of athletes, and it'll really help kind of expand your horizons.
Okay.
When it comes to I kind of like working with this type of athlete more, like cross country, those type of things, versus power, like football.
Yeah.
And the different schedules that come with it. A lot of different challenges with the basketball season versus football season. Football season is super predictable. Spring ball comes around at the exact same time. Summer conditioning comes around, seasons, and so on and so forth. Where basketball, it's not always like that. Different tournaments, you play on different days, multiple days. So there's a lot of different challenges. But I think being around all of those sports helped me put more tools in my tool chest to where if they had a certain situation that would arise, I would think, you know what really helped this beach volleyball player that had nothing to do with basketball necessarily? They play on the sand to help them be more explosive. This, and I give it to basketball and keep going through there.
Yeah. Okay. And so you worked at P3, or you interned at P3, and now you're where you are now. What happened in that in between time to get you there?
So in between, I ended up calling it quits with the football career, of course. I just wanted to go back and start an actual career, I suppose, a civilian career, so to speak. And so I went back to get a master's.
Okay.
My undergrad is business administration.
Okay.
And of course, getting in the field, I need more of a kinesiology exercise science. So while I was living in the Bay Area at the time, I started working on all those undergrad type classes, those prerequisites, and I applied a couple different places, but I ended on landing back at Cal Poly.
Okay.
Chris Holder had just moved back, and so it was a really nice fit for me there, and so I immediately got hired full time, and was an assistant right out the gate, but was also doing full time school. So just completely dove headfirst into that. And so completed my master's in 2 years.
Okay.
Did the thesis. And then so I was there for a total of 4 years. So 2 years after I graduated is when I finally made the jump to Baton Rouge.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. Will you explain kind of your staff structure currently? What that looks like?
So it's interesting because it's kind of everything's changing at LSU currently. With a new athletic director this past year, calendar year, hasn't even been here for really 6 months, it seems like. So there are even changes going on there.
Okay.
I know for us, it's, for the most part, Tommy Moffitt. He's the director. And on the website, everybody's kind of listed as an assistant. We don't have necessarily a director of Olympic sports or football director. Coach Moffitt is the assistant athletic director for sports performance. And so we're just kind of fall under him. And then of course we have our grad assistants in each kind of department / sport, and then interns who are volunteer anyway. So as many as we can handle properly, I suppose we try to take.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. And then kind of one of the interesting things that I did see on there was kind of your title is listed more as strength and conditioning coordinator. Does that give you different responsibilities, or what does that look like compared to just normal strength and conditioning coach or something like that?
So my aspiration is to be more of a head strength and conditioning coach or an athletic director, where I have these more management type responsibilities. Obviously my undergrad was in that style of schooling.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit more familiar with it. And so when I got there, I took a look at the needs and saw what needed to be done at the time, which the structure was a little bit different when I got to LSU.
Yeah.
We're a little bit understaffed at the time at registered dietitians and things like that. And I had a long background in supplementation, foods, all of those types of things. So I basically took all of that for the last couple of years.
Okay.
And then would coordinate some of that, and then I coordinated the intern. I kind of redid some of our intern program a little bit. So anybody that came with us, it was like a brand new system of learning, school, so to speak.
Okay.
So I had our media department put in that title to try to kind of reflect what my job and the responsibilities that I took on. Because that's what I wanted to do. So I did a little bit more. And there was no pay raise or anything like that. It was just a title. Like I said, reflect more of the responsibility.
That makes sense. Okay. And then what's it like working in a university with you got Tommy Moffitt, you got Boosh Exnator, like what's that like just on a day to day?
It's a blessing. I think, like I briefly mentioned in the intro, I hop around. I definitely am. I stay where my feet are, and I make sure my programs are taken care of first. And then I make time to go and visit with Coach Nick Snyder, and I make time to go over the football program. Obviously, we just won a national championship.
Congrats.
So two very different programs on how they're run, but two national championship programs in the same university. Track here is always winning some kind of national championship individually or team-wise. Football obviously just did the same, and even though the past 3 years they've been building that way, and you can feel the change when Coach O kind of took over, and that culture was there. So I visit those programs to see the differences, number one, because they're getting the same results, and then to see how maybe I can incorporate, if anything, into my program, because it is a championship culture. And that's, at the end of the day, what we want to be as well. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay. So let's dive a little bit more into that kind of training piece, right? First and foremost, like what kind of technology do you guys have or able to use and utilize on a daily basis?
The one that we use most is Team Polar Pro. So if you're not familiar with that system, it has GPS, accelerometers, and heart rate, all kind of in a one little bug, so to speak, which is wrapped around your chest and put over your heart just like a normal heart rate monitor is. The GPS for indoor, for us at least, it doesn't work because it's indoor. But I do use it. I do have the ability to kind of flip the switch and use it when we do some track work or those types of things when we're outside. I'll use it when we walk Tiger Stadium. There's an aerobic capacity kind of piece that we use it for. So we use that. And then another piece is the force plates by Vald. So we have dual force plates that we'll use. And we did a little in-house mini study prior to this season, actually, that helped a lot.
Okay. And then how are you able to integrate some of those pieces into some of your initial assessments?
I think it's important to ask the proper question. Those tools just give you what they do. And so asking the proper question out of them, then you'll be able to get the data that you're looking for. And the ability to ask a good question is proper research behind it. So we're kind of vetting those questions. And so after years and years of, fortunately at P3 they had the force plate, so that was my first intro to them, and so I worked a lot with them. And so even though I'm not a biomechanist, I obviously could see the importance of using them as just tools. They just show you what they're doing, and they can't lie to you. It's not possible. If something's wrong, it's probably the user error. Right? They're just computers. Force plates are just scales, fancy scales. So we just tried to ask the right questions, and I consulted with all these coaches, a lot with P3, some other university coaches that have the same, and we tested accordingly. And we just not everything we used. You just ask the system to pull up whatever kind of KPIs, key performance indicators that you want, and then we kind of see over if you can change them or not. The last thing we use are Tendo units.
Okay.
Football just purchased Perch, which is similar to Gym Aware, but without the string. So, and they did a great job vetting that, and I hope we can also get that in our weight room. We have multiple weight rooms.
Okay.
And that would be nice for time.
Yeah.
But we also use that as far as a fatigue monitoring system as well.
Okay. And then what does the rest of your kind of initial assessment look like, or what's the structure, and what are some of those questions that you do want to ask?
Well, we want to make sure they're somewhat symmetrical. I don't really care if they're completely symmetrical. They're athletes, and so their asymmetries probably make them athletic in how they are. So we just want to make sure they're not too far away from each other for injury prevention as well. We do counter movement jump tests with that, pretty standard there. And then it just shows us left to right, so I can see all kinds of movement in the different planes, and just making sure they're doing a good job there. And honestly, I used to do a kind of standard, overhead squat type screen assessment. But now, because of time constraints, I just watch them move during our dynamic warm-up. We do Turkish get-ups as well. And if you're familiar with FMS, you can do every single test from the FMS in the Turkish get-up. So I would prefer the Turkish get-up because it's now a skill I can teach them and not a test I'm coaching them on. So now I'm teaching them a skill, and we're getting kind of a mini assessment, a very quick assessment. A totally valid way to do it. And so not just asymmetries, but we're obviously how powerful they are. When they start to fatigue, we do that with the heart rate monitors. We did load velocity profiling this year with the Tendos, which for us matched 0 of the profiles that you would see in the studies. But it worked anyway. We researched that for a long time before we implemented it. And then our ability to recover. And we use the 300-yard shuttle test as a basic marker. We do 25-yard increments, so a lot of turns, or 75 feet. So it simulates basketball a little bit better. So a lot of those things, and we threw a lot of them in there, and then we ended up using just a few of them. They're the most important ones, and the ones we could, I think, make the biggest impact on.
Okay. And how did you guys kind of set up that load velocity profile, and what did you basically what was the structure, and how did that kind of look in the weight room?
I'm pretty big into research. I'm working on a PhD currently in exercise phys. So I enjoy it, that nerd, I guess, side of me. I think it's super important to kind of keep up, but also be able to understand if it was actually a good research project or not. And so I'm always taking in resources, assigning interns or grad assistants to look up certain things, so they not only they learn, but I continue to gain knowledge about whatever subject we're looking at. And so Science for Sport. I subscribe to those guys, and every month they put out a review of a whole bunch of different studies, so it makes it quicker for me to kind of skim through. And velocity profiling had been gaining some traction in the past few years, it seemed like. So I was like, well, there must be something to it. Let's take a look. At the end of the day, I want to make my athletes fast, but they need to stay strong. Well, let's take a look. And so we took a look at that, and we put it all together with the program we currently have, and it's not really traditional velocity-based testing. It's just a mashup of like 5 different programs.
Okay. Fair enough. And then diving a little bit deeper into the the training structure, what does that kind of weight room and speed, speed, agility, quickness kind of stuff look like in the in-season versus off-season for your programs?
So off-season, now especially being this third year, we require a certain level of conditioning at all times, which you would think that basketball players would always be in some kind of shape because if you're a hooper, you go out and you play. But that's not always the case, unfortunately. I think it's the same as at every level. It doesn't matter at LSU or UConn, I mean, any other top schools, or Cal Poly, let's say. I think they just need to have some basic level of conditioning. So we run a 300-yard shuttle test almost right out the gate. As they come in as just a test to see where they're at. And we do two, and we take the average. And we require our guards to be under 60 seconds on average, and our post players to be under 65. So 64 and under. And if they're not there, then we have extra things for them to do to make sure we can get them there. And it's not the end-all be-all because it is just a test to see where they're at. But I think when they're in condition, then we can do whatever we want. And that basic level of conditioning, then we can do whatever we want in the weight room. And we're not worried about their lungs or their legs fatiguing. And that's the problem, not the actual strength portion of it, or the speed portion in this case. And so this year was actually a brand new program. I've never programmed this way before. With this structure, and like I mentioned earlier, we put the velocity profiling in there, and so we did front squats, trap bar deadlift, cleans, and then overhead press, a strict overhead press. Those are the things I thought we could use that would make the biggest impact on our girls for what we needed to do. And based on their profiles, they were in different groups. So we'll split them up in the groups, and I think most programs, summer's a kind of a big foundational time of the year. Ours lasts 7 weeks long. Because it's just summer school.
Sorry, you said how many weeks?
7
7 weeks. Okay.
And then they'll have about 5 weeks, but from the end of summer until school starts again. Before we get back hold of them. And so this year, I had been the more traditional, all right, hypertrophy, we're doing sets of 10 for the first 2 weeks, and then after that, we're doing strength for 4 to 5 weeks, and then all depended on their initial shuttle test. And then the last 2, we'd focus on power. For a long time, that's how I did it, but this year had nothing like that. We focused on speed zones, the velocity zones. So for those who we thought needed more strength based on these force plate tests that we've done in the springtime, their RSI times, so reactions, the index there, and then those who needed more speed, the same thing. We just put them in different groups, and then some was kind of a good, nice little mashup of both. They needed a little bit of both. They were good at both, but we wanted to be great. And so what we did was, for the first time ever, I didn't program over 5 reps for major exercises.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a big change from that
huge, literally half.
Right?
And then going into the, old strength phase, we went 3s. So more like power. So it was well tested, but I'd never done it before. So, of course, nervous the whole time. And it worked out better than we could have ever thought it would have. So, and we kind of periodized the speed zones as opposed to the actual numbers. And then we just let their bodies tell us where they were at as far as the strength and all of that stuff goes. But what the Tendos did for us was give them a visual cue on actually how fast. So their intent was way higher. They could actually compete against themselves because they had a visual cue. We also do probably most programs call it the same thing, a fourth quarter Friday program. Where that's more mental building there. I partner with Louisiana State Police Department for the last few years. So every Friday during our summertime, we would go to them, and this year a little bit they'd come to us.
Yeah.
Nice partnership there, and they would put them through cadet training. So we would be in the pool, we'd jump in and out of the pool, and fatigues, and do all kind of stuff. Things that maybe scared them. You know, some never been around pools or deep end, or they just don't. That's not part of their growing up.
Yeah.
Or heights.
Yeah.
And so we were able to, conquer a lot of those fears, things, and teach them that there's a lot more to you than you think.
Okay.
And so summertime is a lot about that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And being in the SEC for women's basketball especially, that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
They're going to hit a wall, and they may or may not feel like they're going to be able to push through it, but through the police training with the police officers, I don't see any problem with them ever busting through. I don't see the fear behind their eyes necessarily as much, or if at all.
Yeah.
It's just confidence.
Yeah.
That's the end of the day. I think it's a bigger part of my job than just having them play better at basketball. Of course, it is my job.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want to send them out in the world with a lot tougher challenges.
Yeah.
That they're going to face more than basketball, more than whatever they may face in college. And so I need to get them ready for real life.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, no, just, kind of exposing them to some different stressors, right? But at the same time, making sure they're able to adapt to it. And some novelty experiences, which, if you can handle certain, like one novelty experience, then who's to say you can't handle another, and so on and so forth. So just building that muscle, that's really cool.
That's right.
I like it.
And then after summer training, it went so well. We give them kind of a base on what they did. We'll give them a new percentages and a more vanilla program.
Yeah.
Because they're going home and you don't necessarily have everything we have, and because now we know how fast they can move certain percentages, I can program the percentages for the 5 weeks, so I can keep them within those velocity zones that I want them to continue training at.
Yeah.
So when they come back, we have a 3 shuttle test.
Yeah.
The 2 shuttle is, anybody can do it if you're in any kind of shape. You can do the first one, no problem.
Yeah.
And then the second one is you kind of have to gut it out, but you can do it. The third one, you've got to be in shape.
Yeah.
And the third one is kind of telling if we're ready to almost be where we need to be and start running and playing basketball.
Yeah.
Because now practices are about to start picking up in the fall and all of those types of things. So we need to be in basketball shape.
Yeah.
So what we did there this year, once again, first time with a lot of these things, and people, I'm sure if they were listening, like, of course, why didn't you do that before? But and sometimes you just get stuck in the way you programming, because the way I'd programmed had always worked.
Yeah.
Really well. I reduced injuries, we got faster, we got stronger, and we were in the best shape on the field, or court.
Yeah.
So I didn't think there was much wrong. So what we did this year is we started actually running more change of direction, reactionary things, implementing all of the footwork that we taught them on certain days. But we also implemented some aerobic capacity days, 2 days a week.
Yeah.
One, I was inspired by my buddy in San Francisco who has a gym there.
Okay.
He does these little mini workouts with their group workouts, and it has, a ski erg or a rower, some version of that. Yeah. And it's all out for 20 to 30 seconds. Yeah. And then the second movement is some sort of body weight movement for X amount of reps, and then it's a rest. Yeah. And I thought, man, this would work really well for basketball. Yeah. Because the structure is very similar. And so that was our day one. We called it Cardio Carnival. Okay. To make it a little fun for the athletes. And then the second day, so that would be a Tuesday. And then we usually get a break on Wednesday. And then Friday, and then the day we do stadium walks. Okay. Literally keep them within a heart rate zone to kind of help with their shuttling system. Yeah. And that's all we did. And they were starting to practice now more, so I didn't have to run them because they were running already in practice. They were getting those sprints. Yeah. Excuse me, that I didn't have to do. But our weight stayed the same. We actually went up every week by 3% without fail. Wow. I know there's different ways to program it, but we went up by 3%. But so by the time season was just about to start, we had already got a new max.
That's huge.
Huge. And and sometimes, we had to lower the weight, but we maintained our speed profile. Because we want to move fast. And they just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And not getting any weight, unless we wanted them to. There was a few that we needed to, but of course that's just a small example. And then we just maxed out again almost a month ago. In the middle of season. And what the biggest thing that changed is we cut out deadlifts. And we still front squatted, but now we cut out front squats as well. So once the season started, there was no more front squatting and no more deadlifting. We cleaned them in different positions. The 2 or 3 days a week, and then we overhead press them and push press them for more of an explosive type movement. And we kept them all in tender units to make sure we were right where we need to be. And then every 4 to 6 weeks or so, depending on what the schedule is, we front squat them again at 90%. And they destroyed it.
That's awesome.
So our post player, we had tested her in the springtime, and she had a great front squat. She's 6'5". 120 kilo front squat for one. Like, good for most anybody. At the end of the 7 weeks in the summertime, I think during the summer, the most we actually put on the bar was 100 or 105 kilo the whole time. She was on the speed group. She needed speed. And then in the summer, when we go to re-max her out to see where she's at, we just kept putting more and more on the bar. We're like, wait a minute, her max was 120. Like, I expected 135, 140 maybe. But she front squatted 160 kilos.
Wow.
At like 0.5 meters per second. So, which means she actually needed to squat more. And we posted a video of it. She could easily have done 170 kilos. Like, no problem. And then about a month ago, we front squatted them again. Once again, one of those max style days, just cluster sets. And we put on 95% on the bar, and she did it twice at 0.8 meters per second. Which is like, so it keeps. I wish I wasn't surprised anymore. Every time, like, I can't believe this is working out.
To that level of success.
I mean, it's more research, but it's and I understand why it's happening. And it's working for a reason, but it's just crazy that why haven't I done this before? We lowered their overall volume. We increased the intensity by, I forgot the exact percentage, but increased it by a lot. And we're in the best shape. We're the strongest. And we're the fastest I've ever had any team in my life. Which is a lot of different athletes at this point, thankfully. So right now we're in the middle of this new program, in the middle of season, just kind of starting conference. We're 4 games in now. And like I said, we're getting ready to have a kind of a bye week next week. And we will front squat max them again. And see where they're at their 90-95%.
Wow.
Which I already moved up because of the last time.
Because naturally.
It'll be a new time. I'm not looking to like max them, just a higher percentage. So probably end up going 85-90. And then I really want to max them, or that style anyway, right before conference tournament again. I think this whole maintaining during season is it's kind of crappy for the athletes. During the season is when you want to be your best. So you want to be your most skilled, be your most in shape, be strongest, and etc. So these like maintenance type programs seem silly to me. And the girls have done a really nice job of obviously seeing the results. And they just go hard. In the weight room. So they have no problem putting the weight. And another thing about the tender units is if you're a basketball player, typically you're not lifting heavy weights. Somebody's gotten you on basically a full accessory type program. And they're not actually developing speed, strength, explosive power. Because you're a basketball player, some version of whatever they think.
Yeah.
And they're not used to putting themselves under that kind of a load.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of guts.
Mm.
Even myself, who I'm not a professional lifter, but I'm obviously very intentful behind it.
Yeah.
It can get to you, you know, really just mentally, like, oh, this feels like the weight of the world right now.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm barely moving it up. But what Nintendo does was tell them that, no, it was as fast as I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
And so it gave them, once again, more confidence that something that they maybe didn't feel like doing.
Yeah.
Or it just felt worse than what it was.
But they were very capable.
But they were very capable because of the numbers on the monitor.
Yeah.
And so that took us a long ways too.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing during season, well, at all times of the year, we swing kettlebells like crazy.
Okay.
The minimum amount of kettlebells is typically 100 reps.
Okay.
And we'll do it after the lift, almost religiously.
Yeah.
So I think it's when I played, Chris Holder introduced that to me, and it was a game changer for the program. And it was it continuing to be a game changer everywhere we take it.
Yeah. And that, I mean, coming from your background with, you know, RKC certified, how do you implement some of that kettlebell stuff? You know, is that, you know, at the end, or is it just, you know, 100 straight reps, or what are we looking at?
We will use the kettlebells for presses, for carries, and then certain step-up type variations and things like that. More in that front rack loaded position. Yeah. We'll carry them. Farmers carry those type of things from time to time. I think the bread and butter though is a 10 by 10 or a 5 by 20 swing. Okay. And depending on the time of year, the closer we get to season needing me in shape, will be more of an I go you go style. Okay. The further away, it'll be more of a longer rest to work ratio. Okay. So more traditional, I guess, there. Yeah. And then I bump up the weight a lot quickly. Okay. And what we did too was I could not find any research on swinging kettlebells in Tendo units. Like, how fast are you supposed to swing a kettlebell? Yeah. Well, the answer is usually as fast as you can. But what does that look like? And so I swung kettlebells on forced plates, and we attached the Tendo units, and we realized, at least for us, that if we're swinging a kettlebell over 2.75 meters per second, that's good. And sometimes the weight is too light. Yeah. And so we put weight on, and they're swinging it faster. And so typically, if they're dipping below 2.75, then we're looking at fatigue parameters. Yeah. And then if they're above it, then they need to go heavier. Because it's just, once again, a speed, a velocity zone that we're trying to hit at all times. Yeah. So training fast, being completely intentful about what we do. So like today, we actually implemented, we had a lift today, which is why we had to move our time. Yeah. But today we just put in double kettlebell swings. Okay. Today. I felt like our upper backs and our core could use a little shock. So we put in those. Yeah. So of course doubled the load. And still swinging them fast. And so with this, right, you mentioned the minimum was 100. What is your kind of rationale in terms of like the reps and sets with some of those kettlebells? Sure. Well, even with the heaviest kettlebell that we have is 60 kilos. Okay. And even with that, that's usually a super sub-maximal of whatever it is they're putting on the bar. Obviously, 60 is not even half of 170 kilos, right? Yeah. So, and then most of the girls aren't swinging the 60, of course. Unfortunately, it'd be a strength coach's dream, right? I was about to say, yeah. They can, some of them, but it's not necessary. So, swinging a 24 or 28 or 20 kilo bell is just nothing compared to what they do, and it really mimics what they do on the court. Yeah. Thousands and thousands of sprints and loads, explodes, and A cells, D cells, all of that kind of thing. And we're just doing 100. Yeah. So we're just training maximal tension 100 times, where they are doing that thousands of times. Yeah. And so we're just training it so that their body gets used to it, and just increases the exposure to those maximal, I guess, plyometric style movements. this is where we're at, and this is where we've been, and could be where we're going if we continue at this rate. And then I just ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, are they playing worse? Or do you think that they're missing their shots because they're tired?
Yeah.
Do you think, and all of those types of questions. And I just present the data to them as it's shown to me. And I, of course, arrange it in graphs and those types of things so they could see it.
Yeah.
And we're just monitoring. So just a nice little acute to chronic workload ratio.
Yeah.
I am brain farting on the research that we're using for that ratio specifically. But
is it the Gabbett the Gabbett stuff or something different?
Yeah, Gabbett. Gabbett and one other. He was on the same paper.
Okay.
Or one of the same papers. So we're using that, and it's working really well.
Yeah.
And it just helps our coach kind of plan for games.
Yeah.
Style of play, she'll help with that as well. And then during our practices as well.
Yeah.
Is all right. Well, the so needs less time today.
Yeah.
So they're going to shoot free throws or whatever drill she wants. So I do not recommend what they should do.
Yeah.
She knows better than I, and I can just say, well, this is what this was.
Yeah.
And then for our Stay Ready crew, which is our low mileage folk, and not everybody plays, I use that to see how far away they are from our starters, and at least make sure they are up as close as possible so they can stay ready and play and be happy about their performance.
Yeah. Okay. And so what have you been able to, pull from, some of your academic training was, you did some stuff with recovery, and then you've also done some stuff with Qigong and recovery. What have you been able to pull from that and apply to your current situation?
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do anything with the Qigong.
My fault, yeah.
It's okay. It's I understand. It was difficult for me when I first was introduced as well.
Yeah.
When we did my thesis on it at Cal Poly, it produced some pretty amazing results.
Okay.
Very, very brief. There were two groups: one that did the Qigong and one didn't.
And then before we even get into this, will you explain a little bit what Qigong is?
I think the best way to explain it is if most people have seen Tai Chi, it's a moving meditation, and it's intent based. So knowing that there is energy that cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be manipulated, is the idea behind it. So you are moving good energy in and bad energy or stagnant type energy out. So you're just recovering your energetic properties through the meridian lines that run through all your organs, the heavens, down from the heavens through your body to the earth, and vice versa. So it is a moving meditation. And if you do acupuncture, acupuncture came from Qigong, so all those needles are doing is just kind of removing those blockages in the meridian lines, right? So there's that. So we decided that, so Chris Holder is a doctor of medical Qigong. Okay. And he put together the meditation practice. Yeah. That which was designed specifically for athletes. Okay. So in athletes and anybody in the lower dantian, which is basically where your belly button is where a lot of your power resides. And so he made this practice to where we would pull in a whole lot of energy and place it there. So when they were ready to perform, they would be able to perform more efficiently and effectively. Okay. Because the idea is, if you think about a stream or a river with a tree blocking it, it becomes stagnant and nasty and gross, and disease, those types of things happen. That's the same way in the body. Yeah. If you have stress, physical, mental, all kinds of things can cause those blockages in those meridian lines, those rivers of energy, good flowing energy. And if you don't remove them, then based on ancient Chinese medicine, then sickness starts to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so we wanted to clear them out so the body was able to work at optimal capacity. And so we did that 5 days a week, 15 minutes a day. Yeah. That was it. In the morning, and for college kids at 5:30 in the morning is not the most optimal time. But you know what? Once again, it's intention based. Yeah. So they were all in on it, and at the end of the day, the group that did practice the Qigong lifted on average, I think it was 10 kilo better on the front deadlift, about the same for the front squat. They jumped higher versus the non-Qigong group. And that was literally the only thing they did differently.
Interesting.
Was a 15-minute practice every morning.
Yeah.
We also did a wellness questionnaire for them.
Yeah.
It does help with mental wellness, and we did a scatter plot. And it was interesting during finals week, during midterms, things like that. You could see that the answer to some of the questions, like how are you feeling today, or do you feel confident, and those types of things, they were much lower in the non-Qigong group. And they were maybe lower in the Qigong group, but what would happen is their highs and lows were never too high and they're never too low. They're much more even. So they didn't have these big stretches of like big highs, which will drop you to big lows. So their line was a lot more, it was tighter, so to speak. That's interesting. So their emotions didn't really affect their performance anymore. So it all kind of ties in, right? If your emotions are kind of under control, you don't have your significant other breaking up with you, or whatever thing would happen, or you failed the test, it didn't affect them as much. And they were able to perform and still do their job and go to school and play football or volleyball or whatever they did in that case.
Wow. Okay.
So difficult to. It's a little weird, right? If you've never even considered or heard of something like that.
It is very uncommon.
Like, I want you to take the energy from the sun and pass that straight into your body. Let it wash over you. You can feel the warmth. All of those types of things to athletes that don't come from the most experiential situations. It's not easy to implement those types of things. It's not impossible. It's just when something's that new and out there for anybody, it's hard to have intent behind it.
I was about to say it's hard enough to get some athletes to just squat. So
right, and then ask them to believe and see in their mind's eye energy. How do you do that? They've got to just believe it.
That's interesting.
So I would like to, but just haven't.
For sure. Okay.
And then the recovery thing, honestly, it's like you just have to do it. We know what you need to do. You know that you need to sleep well. You know that you need to eat well, and we know what those things look like. I mean, testing, we do blood tests and all those types of things, that, especially at LSU with the resources, we know what you're deficient in. And you are kind of cared for. But that doesn't mean you do it. So I constantly bring in infographics, research, things that relate to basketball or just life in general. Once again, I want to build a better human. That relate to what happened to them. Like if something negative happened, I'm in their ear constantly. Not saying I told you so, but hey, this will help that. If you don't want this to happen again, let's try this. Those types of things. So I give them infographics, usually weekly, to put in their athletic binders that we give them, so they have a reference. So if they, if they want to stretch more, they've got stretches for all kind of joints. If they want to know how much to drink water-wise for them, then they know where to find it. So they may not always do it, but they know. Now, in their mind, my goal is to get them at least think about it. Like fast food, obviously not the best thing for that. All of like fried food and all of that stuff for athletic performance for a bunch of different reasons. But sometimes when they feel it, they know. At least if they're thinking about it, they'll know that this may not help me, and then they may still do it, and that's okay. They're college kids, but at least now we've gotten them to think about it. And be aware that it's going on, and maybe one day they'll decide more often than not, like, you know what? I found my why. I know which things now I can start to get rid of and filter out of my life. And that will be able to stay with them through after college and after sports.
Because like you said before, right, that's what it's all about, is kind of just preparing them for a little bit more for life, right, versus just sport. So I like that. That's awesome. And then moving into this kind of last segment here, right? If you have any, what are some resources that have had a big impact on you?
I read all the time.
Okay.
Especially during season, it's nice because we get to travel. So on the plane and all those type of things. Audiobooks for me have become pretty important on the road and when I'm driving, etc. So anytime I'm in the car, I'll listen to audiobooks multiple times. Some of the books I really liked before was Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo.
Yeah.
I thought, have you read that book or heard it?
Yeah.
You know what? I think one of the things that also I thought about when I was at Cal Poly is like, what sets me apart from Coach Moffitt, Coach, name any top coach, right? Like, why are they the top coach?
Yeah.
I can teach a deadlift. I can teach a clean.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting their guys to do what it is they need to do and bring out them better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And then consistently being able to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I need to work on communication, obviously. So that's a huge book for me. I think most recently, not the most recent, but the David Goggins book is very good. The Can't Hurt Me. Yeah, Can't Hurt Me is good. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Okay.
Really enjoyed. I'm on that twice. Klaus actually recommended that to me, and he's like, put every other book you're reading down and read this book.
Okay.
I was like, all right, Klaus, I got you. So I finished reading the book I had, and then I put it, and I finished it quick.
Yeah.
And so I'm already working on it again.
Yeah.
And like I said, fortunately, I've got resources at LSU, so and my mini intern program that we created.
Yeah.
So I asked them what they want to learn. Say this is what we kind of want to do for basketball, or just in general in sports, and we want to know theories, not necessarily just exercise.
Yeah.
So we'll assign different things to each one of them to go research. I think it's really important to clearly define a role for them. Yeah. And then they just need to be the best at that role, whatever it is that they're defining, and then once we kind of can't get it wrong, then we move on.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll switch up so they have all these different experiences.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. And then moving into this very last segment here, right, it's just kind of some really short answer questions. If you have any, what are some quotes that you live by?
It's not a quote, but it's a thought. It's how am I improving my relationship with time? Time is the most finite resource that we have. And so I gauge everything that I do with my life. Yeah. Because in fact, I am trading my life for whatever it is I'm doing. Yeah. And if it's really that important to me, then it makes my decisions easy. Yeah. I like that. I have my priorities straight because my time is limited. Yeah. Okay. What is the best advice that you've ever been given? My agent told me that in business, it's never personal, it's just business. And when you put your heart and soul in a lot of things and you get no's, it's easy to take it personal. For sure. But to me, now, because of that, I've always thought, well, I just asked the wrong question, or I asked in the wrong manner. And I need to go back and reevaluate how I'm asking this question, or in what manner I need to ask the question. Because it's really important to me, I need to find a way to get this thing. I like that. Okay. Or this need. Yeah. Okay. So in contrast to that, what's the worst advice that you've ever been given? Oh, man. I don't know. I've been around some really good coaches. Okay. Just fortunate. Yeah. It doesn't happen like that. My high school coach, look back and they didn't necessarily program all the right things, but I think they were just consistent at their message. Yeah. College got even better coaching, right? But super consistent. Yeah. I haven't had much bad advice. Okay. It's mostly been good, I think. Yeah. More so because on the other flip side of the good advice is proximity is power. And I know a lot of people have talked about being around, you're like the 5 people you're around the most. Yeah. And with my whole relationship with time thing, I try to keep myself around those people all the time. And so I'm not around necessarily bad advice. They're constantly trying to better themselves. And
I like that.
I don't know. That's hard.
That's awesome though. That's awesome to be in a situation like that. Okay.
Yeah. Fortunate. I just maybe it's just because I don't focus on the bad. And
that's true. Yeah.
I'm sure there is. I just kind of move on quickly.
Yeah. Okay. And then last question here: what are some projects that you're currently working on, and how can people kind of reach out to you and follow your journey?
With the PhD, we're looking at writing a protocol for lactate testing.
Okay.
For exercise, and of course, there's a bunch of stuff for aerobic type testing and things like that. But I want to see if we can do it and have a self-writing program. So we know how certain exercises will affect their lactate threshold.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to just kind of plug and play. Like, all right, well, that we know that if we put this in, then it will affect them in this way, and then we can put in the right exercise for whatever attribute we're trying to improve.
Yeah.
So we're currently kind of starting to write that, and that may actually be my dissertation.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
So, but we try to post as much as I can. I don't know how everybody does it.
Yeah.
As far as strength coaches goes, I'm just like so busy watching them and just tinkering with their technique and making sure their toes are right and their intent. And we don't post as many exercises of our girls or athletes.
Yeah.
We try to post on Instagram and Twitter. I do a quote every day, a daily quote that's on Twitter.
And what's that handle?
It should be coach.c.white.
Okay.
Or if it's not the dot, I think I had to do two different ones. Coach_C_white.
Okay.
So one of those two.
Yeah.
But so you'll get a daily quote every day. I'll just look up a quote.
Yeah.
Online, whatever one hits me, or it's probably what's going on in the season.
Yeah.
What I feel is the most important, and I just put it out there. And if
that's awesome.
people like it, helps them, great. If not, then you'll see one tomorrow. So.
Move on. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we actually have an RKC coming up.
Okay.
So we'll be doing those seminars as well. In actually New Orleans.
Okay.
In April.
Yeah.
So if you want to be in person, I suppose, to the kettlebell, then.
And there it is. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. A lot of good things in here and some awesome things that you're doing. So a lot of people are going to be able to draw upon that, I think, and better their practice. So once again, thank you for your time, and look forward to speaking again in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem.